June 15th, 1944, 15,000 feet over the French countryside, 30 miles southeast of Caen. The morning sun cuts through scattered clouds, casting shadows across green fields marked by hedgerows and stone farmhouses. Below, the Normandy invasion forces have been ashore for 9 days. Above, the war continues in 3 dimensions. Hauptmann Klaus Weber adjusts his oxygen mask and peers through the armored glass canopy of his Messerschmitt Bf-19G6. The aircraft vibrates slightly as the Daimler-Benz DB605 engine pulls him through thin air at 280 miles per hour. Behind him, 3 more 109s maintain tight formation, their mottled grey-green camouflage blending against the morning sky. 47 kills painted on Weber's fuselage, red victory bars beneath his cockpit, each representing an Allied aircraft destroyed in aerial combat. Spitfires over Britain in 1941, P-38. Lightnings over Sicily in 1943, P-51. Mustangs over France in early 1944. A veteran who has survived 3 years of continuous warfare when most pilots last 3 months. Weber's wingman today is Unteroffizier Friedrich Hartmann, 11 kills to his credit. Flying high cover are Oberleutnant Hans Dortmann and Feldwebel Wilhelm Müller, adding another 23 victories between them. Combined experience over 800 combat hours. Not rookies prone to panic or exaggeration. Achtung, American fighters, 2 o'clock low, Weber transmits through his throat microphone. 8 contacts climbing to our altitude. Through his windscreen, Weber studies the approaching formation. Fat, bulky silhouettes rising from lower altitude. The distinctive profile he's learned to recognize through countless intelligence briefings. Republic P-47 Thunderbolts. American fighters that have been appearing over Europe with increasing frequency since early 1944. Weber almost smiles behind his oxygen mask. 7 tons of American steel trying to dance in European skies. His 109 weighs barely 3 tons empty, 6,100 pounds fully loaded. Simple mathematics. Power-to-weight ratios that favor German engineering and tactical doctrine. Easy prey today, Friedrich, Weber radios his wingman. The Americans have sent us flying tanks. The P-47 formation maintains a steady climb toward Weber's altitude. No evasive action. No apparent awareness of 4 German fighters positioned with altitude advantage. Standard American tactics, brute force approaches, relying on numerical superiority rather than tactical finesse. Weber has studied captured P-47 specifications in intelligence reports. Maximum speed 433 miles per hour in level flight. Service ceiling 42,000 feet. Armament 850 caliber machine guns. Impressive firepower, but delivered by an aircraft too heavy for effective maneuvering combat. Weber to all aircraft, he transmits. We take them in pairs. Standard attack from the sun. I'll engage the leader. Friedrich, take his wingman. Dortmann and Müller, cover our withdrawal. German tactical doctrine, refined through 4 years of aerial combat. Maintain altitude advantage. Attack with speed and surprise. Hit hard, disengage quickly, climb back to superior position. Energy management principles that have destroyed thousands of Allied aircraft. Weber rolls his 109 inverted and points his nose toward the lead P-47. Gravity assists his acceleration as the fighter builds speed. 300 miles per hour. 350. 400. The Daimler-Benz engine delivers smooth power. Its 12 cylinders synchronized in perfect mechanical harmony. Below him, the American formation continues its predictable climb. No defensive maneuvering. No attempt to counter Weber's obvious approach. The lead P-47 seems sluggish, weighted down by fuel and ammunition. Weber's firing solution develops perfectly, range decreasing at optimal intercept angle. 800 meters. 700. 600. Weber's finger moves toward the trigger of his 30mm Mk108 cannon. One shell from the mine thrower will tear the American fighter apart. Range continues to close. 500 meters. 400. Then the P-47's nose drops. What happens next defies every assumption Weber has held about aerial combat physics. The American fighter doesn't just dive. It rockets earthward at tremendous speed, accelerating into the high subsonic realm where control surfaces compress and aircraft behavior becomes unpredictable. The massive radial engine doesn't strain or falter. Instead, it roars with power that transforms the diving aircraft into a high-velocity projectile. 450 miles per hour, 500, 550. Weber watches his intended prey disappear into atmospheric haze below, moving faster than his own aircraft, despite starting the engagement at disadvantageous position. His carefully planned intercept dissolves into empty sky and impossible mathematics. "Klaus, did you see that?" Hartmann's voice crackles through the radio. "How fast was that Thunderbolt moving?" Weber stares at empty sky, where 8 American fighters had been moments before. His airspeed indicator shows 420 miles per hour in his own dive, full emergency power applied. The P-47s have simply vanished, outrunning German fighters that should possess every tactical advantage. For the first time in 3 years of war, Klaus Weber has no answer for his wingman's question. Luftwaffe Headquarters Berlin, March 8, 1944, 0930 hours. The German High Command conference room occupies the 3rd floor of a requisitioned government building, its windows overlooking Wilhelmstrasse. Oak desks arranged in precise formation, maps covering every wall, marked with colored pins indicating Allied air activity across Western Europe. The efficient machinery of German military planning now focused on countering American daylight bombing operations. Oberst Heinrich Müller enters, carrying a leather briefcase filled with intelligence assessments. Technical Analysis Division reports, pilot debriefings, reconnaissance photographs, data compiled from 6 months of encounters with American fighter escorts. Information that will shape Luftwaffe tactical doctrine for the remainder of 1944. Müller's audience consists of 12 officers representing fighter groups across Germany and occupied territories. Majors and Oberleutnants who command experienced pilots, men who have survived the British night blitz, the Russian campaign, the Mediterranean theater. Veterans who understand aerial warfare's brutal mathematics. "Gentlemen," Müller begins, spreading reconnaissance photographs across the briefing table. "American fighter development presents both opportunities and challenges for our defensive operations." The photographs show various American aircraft in flight. P-51 Mustangs, sleek and angular. P-38 Lightnings, with their distinctive twin-boom configuration. And dominating the center of the table, a clear image of a Republic P-47 Thunderbolt captured by a high-altitude reconnaissance camera. The Americans have deployed 3 primary fighter types for bomber escort, Müller continues. The P-51 Mustang demonstrates excellent range and speed. The P-38 Lightning provides heavy firepower with reasonable performance. But their latest aircraft, the P-47 Thunderbolt, represents a departure from conventional fighter design. Müller opens his briefcase and retrieves technical specifications captured from a crashed P-47 near Frankfurt. Engine specifications, weight calculations, performance data compiled by German engineering teams. Numbers that tell a story of American industrial philosophy applied to aerial warfare. P-47 Thunderbolt characteristics, Müller reads. Wingspan 40 feet 9 inches. Length 36 feet 1 inch. Empty weight 9,900 pounds. Maximum takeoff weight 17,500 pounds. Maximum speed 433 miles per hour in level flight at 25,000 feet. Major Wilhelm Steinberg, representing Jagdgeschwader 2, studies the specifications with growing confidence. Herr Oberst, those figures suggest an aircraft optimized for ground attack rather than air-to-air combat. Nearly 10,000 pounds empty weight, or Bf-109G weighs 6,100 pounds fully loaded. Precisely, Major. Basic physics suggests the P-47 should be vulnerable in maneuvering combat. A heavy fighter cannot maintain energy in vertical maneuvers. It bleeds speed like a wounded animal attempting to climb. The mathematics seemed obvious to everyone in the room. German fighters average 6,000 to 7,000 pounds maximum weight. American P-51 Mustangs weighed 7,125 pounds empty, representing the upper limit of acceptable fighter design. But the P-47? Nearly 10,000 pounds before adding fuel and ammunition. Logic suggested it should fall from the sky under its own gravitational burden. Müller's aide, Hauptmann Franz Weber, spreads additional reconnaissance photos across the table. Gun camera footage from recent encounters over France. Frame-by-frame analysis of P-47 formations engaging German fighters. Evidence that supports their tactical assessment. Herr Oberst, our pilots report success against Thunderbolt formations over Normandy and the Ruhr Valley. The Americans appear reluctant to engage in sustained, turning combat. They prefer diving attacks followed by immediate withdrawal. Naturally, Müller nods with satisfaction. Energy management, Hauptmann. A heavy fighter cannot maintain energy in sustained vertical maneuvers. When we force them into turning engagements, they lose speed and become vulnerable to our superior maneuverability. Major Steinberg raises his hand. So what about the P-47's armament? 8 50 caliber machine guns represent significant firepower. Müller flips through technical analysis reports. Impressive on paper, Major, but firepower means nothing without the ability to maintain firing position. Our 109s and 190s can outturn any American fighter, force them into horizontal combat where our advantages become decisive. What German intelligence failed to grasp was hiding in plain sight, documented in their own captured specifications, but misinterpreted through European design philosophy. Republic Aviation hadn't built a traditional fighter at all. They'd engineered a powered projectile designed to exploit altitude and diving speed rather than turn radius and climb rate. The key lay buried in engine specifications that German analysts had noted but not fully understood. The Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine, buried in that massive nose cowling, produced 2,000 horsepower in normal operation, with war emergency power reaching 2,300 horsepower. More than 50% greater output than a Bf 109's Daimler-Benz power plant. More power than German engineers believed necessary for single-engine fighter operations. But raw horsepower statistics meant little without understanding American tactical philosophy. German fighters emphasized individual pilot skill and aircraft maneuverability. Americans developed systematic approaches, overwhelming firepower, superior numbers, industrial capacity that could replace losses faster than enemies could inflict them. Boxstead Airfield, England, June 15, 1944, 05:45 hours. Lieutenant Colonel Francis Gabby Gabreski adjusts his leather helmet as ground crew personnel complete pre-flight inspection of his P-47 D-25 Thunderbolt. 28 victories painted behind his cockpit in neat rows. America's leading European ace in 1944 and living proof that the fat fighter can dance when properly handled. The aircraft around him weighs 1,700 pounds, fully loaded for combat operations. Fuel capacity, 370 gallons internal, plus 2 150-gallon drop tanks slung beneath the wings. Ammunition, 425 rounds of 50 caliber for each of 8 wing-mounted machine guns. Total firepower approaching 6,800 rounds per minute, enough to saw a locomotive in half or turn a Messerschmitt into aluminum confetti. Colonel, weather's clear over France, his crew chief reports. Winds aloft favorable for the mission profile. Engine temps normal, oil pressure steady. Gabreski nods and climbs into the cockpit, settling into the armored seat that has carried him through dozens of combat missions. Around him, instrument panels display the complexity of modern American fighter aircraft. Engine gauges, flight controls, radio equipment, gun switches. Technology that transforms pilot input into devastating aerial capability. The R2800 double wasp engine behind his firewall represents 3 years of American engineering evolution. 18 cylinders arranged in 2 rows of 9, each cylinder displacing 155 cubic inches. Combined displacement, 2,804 cubic inches of controlled automotive fury. designed to operate continuously at power settings that would destroy European engines within hours. Maximum rated power 2,000 horsepower at 2,700 RPM and 25,000 feet altitude. War emergency power 2,300 horsepower at 2,800 RPM for limited duration. But raw power statistics tell only part of the story. Republic's engineers understood that the P-47's weight could become an advantage rather than liability when properly applied. Potential energy stored at altitude, kinetic energy released in controlled descent. Physics that German pilots don't yet comprehend. Lead to all flights, Gabreski transmits as his formation climbs through 10,000 feet over the English Channel. Maintain cruise climb. Bogies reported over the Caen sector. Gabreski's formation consists of 8 P-47s from the 61st Fighter Squadron. Experienced pilots with combined combat time exceeding 400 hours. Men who understand their aircraft's capabilities and limitations. More importantly, men who know how to exploit physics that favor American design philosophy. Through his armored windscreen, Gabreski watches the French coastline approach. Below, invasion forces continue operations that began 9 days ago. Above, contrails mark high-altitude bomber formations protected by fighter escorts. The three-dimensional chess game of strategic warfare, played with aircraft and human lives. Lead bogies 12 o'clock high, his wingman reports. 4 contacts coming down fast. Gabreski spots them immediately. 4 Bf-109s beginning their attack dive from altitude advantage. Standard German tactics, height, speed, surprise. Concentrated firepower delivered through coordinated assault. Tactics that have destroyed thousands of Allied aircraft since 1939. But Gabreski has seen this scenario dozens of times. He knows exactly what the German pilots are thinking. Heavy American fighter. Slow to accelerate. Vulnerable in maneuvering combat. Easy target for experienced Luftwaffe pilots applying proven tactical doctrine. All flights prepare for emergency dive. On my mark, Gabreski's hands move across his instrument panel with practiced efficiency. Mixture control, rich. Propeller pitch, low RPM for maximum acceleration. Throttle, war emergency power. Cowl flaps, open for engine cooling. The P-47 responds like a thoroughbred racehorse, 2,300 horsepower, available for immediate application. The pursuing Bf-109s grow larger in his rearview mirror. German pilots pushing their own aircraft past safe operational limits, desperate to close engagement range before American fighters can escape. Their Daimler-Benz engines produce 1,475 horsepower maximum, impressive by European standards, but insufficient for the physics demonstration about to unfold. Mark. Gabreski pushes his control stick forward and opens his throttle to full war emergency power. The P-47's nose drops below the horizon, gravity adding its acceleration to engine thrust. The massive Hamilton Standard propeller, 13 feet in diameter, bites into dense air with 4 precisely engineered blades. Airspeed indicator 250 miles per hour. 300, 350. Behind him, 7 more Thunderbolts follow their leader toward the deck, 36 50-caliber machine guns. Combined rate of fire, approximately 6,800 rounds per minute. Each bullet weighs 1.8 ounces and travels at 2,840 feet per second. The mathematics of destruction, written in American engineering and applied through systematic tactics. Airspeed 400 miles per hour. 450. Gabreski's aircraft begins to vibrate as control surfaces encounter increasing air density and compressibility effects. The P-47 approaches the regime where subsonic aircraft behavior becomes unpredictable, but Republic's engineers built safety margins into their calculations. Test pilots have pushed prototypes beyond 600 miles per hour in controlled dives without structural failure. 500 miles per hour. Give 25. The German fighters fall behind as if anchored to invisible chains. Their inline engines, optimized for high-altitude performance, cannot match the Double Wasp's low-altitude power output. Their lighter airframes, designed for maneuverability, create proportionally more drag at extreme velocities. Physics working against German design philosophy. Gabreski levels out at 5,000 feet, 8 miles ahead of his pursuers. His radio crackles with German voices, frustrated and confused. Words he doesn't understand, but emotions he recognizes. Disbelief, anger, the sound of tactical doctrine crumbling under the weight of American engineering reality. Lead to all flights. Reform on me. Let's show them how Americans climb. The P-47's massive radial engine delivers its full 2,000 horsepower to the spinning propeller disc. Each blade adjusted to optimal pitch by constant speed governors, maximizing thrust efficiency across the entire power band. The double wasp doesn't strain or overheat. Instead, it pulls Gabreski's formation skyward with relentless mechanical determination. Rate of climb, approximately 2,500 feet per minute at sea level. Within 2 minutes, Gabreski's formation has regained 5,000 feet of altitude. The German fighters, their energy dissipated in the failed pursuit, circled defensively below. Predators transformed into prey by simple physics and American industrial capability. All flights were going back down. Anyone who can't keep up gets to walk home. Gabreski rolls inverted and points his nose toward Earth again. This time, he knows the German pilots will be watching, learning, reporting what they've witnessed to intelligence officers who won't believe the numbers until gun camera footage provides undeniable evidence. The P-47 accelerates past 550 miles per hour, past 580. Republic's test pilots have achieved extreme velocities in prototype aircraft, faster than many jets under development in 1944. Performance that redefines aerial combat physics for the remainder of World War II. Behind Gabreski, 7 more Thunderbolts follow their leader toward the deck. Formation discipline maintained despite extreme velocities. Professional airmanship combined with superior technology. The combination that will dominate European skies for the remainder of the war. Luftwaffe Headquarters, Berlin, June 16, 1944, 800 hours. Major Hans Dortmann enters Oberst Müller's office, carrying 3 pilot reports from the previous day's combat operations. Each typewritten form contains detailed observations of P-47 Thunderbolt encounters over France. Each report describes identical performance characteristics that contradict established intelligence assessments. Herr Oberst, our pilots estimate P-47 diving speeds approaching 950 kilometers per hour, Dortmann reports, placing the documents on Müller's oak desk. Hauptmann Weber's entire staffel confirms these observations. Müller examines the forms with growing concern. Weber's signature at the bottom, along with supporting statements from 3 additional witnesses. Experienced pilots with combined combat time exceeding 800 hours. Veterans who have survived hundreds of combat sorties against British, American and Russian aircraft. Not rookies prone to panic or gross exaggeration. Major, our technical assessment indicates maximum P-47 speed of 700 kilometers per hour in level flight. These reports suggest diving velocities exceeding our own aircraft by substantial margins. Dortmann spreads additional reconnaissance materials across Müller's desk. Gun camera footage from a Focke-Wulf Wonder 90 encounter near Rouen. Frame-by-frame analysis of a P-47 diving sequence captured by high-speed film equipment. Evidence that supports pilot observations despite contradicting established intelligence data. Analysis suggests the American fighter achieved approximately 900 kilometers per hour before disappearing from camera range, Herr Oberst. Our photo interpretation specialists have verified these calculations using multiple reference points. Müller studies the blurred images with growing unease. Physics argues against such performance from a 4.5-ton fighter aircraft. Basic aerodynamics suggests that heavy aircraft should be disadvantaged in vertical flight profiles. German design philosophy emphasizes maneuverability over brute force, precisely because mathematics favors lighter aircraft in aerial combat. Major, contact our technical assessment division immediately. I want complete analysis of American P-47 specifications, engine power ratings, structural limitations, control surface authority. Something in our intelligence evaluation is fundamentally incorrect. What German engineers discovered over the following weeks transformed their understanding of American aircraft design philosophy. The P-47 represented a complete departure from European fighter concepts, optimized for different tactical requirements than German or British aircraft. Instead of maximizing turn radius and climb rate, Republic Aviation had created a high-altitude interceptor capable of extreme diving speeds. The key lay in power plant selection and application. European fighters typically employed inline engines, producing 1,200 to 1,500 horsepower maximum output. Compact, efficient, lightweight power plants that provided excellent power-to-weight ratios for maneuvering combat. American designers had selected radial engines, specifically the Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp. Comparative horsepower analysis. Messerschmitt Bf 109G6 1,475. HP Maximum Focke-Wulf FW190A8 1700 HP Maximum Republic P Route D25 2000 HP Normal 2300 HP War Emergency. The P-47's extra weight became less significant when engine output increased proportionally. More importantly, that additional mass provided momentum during high-speed dives. Kinetic energy that German fighters, despite their superior power-to-weight ratios in level flight, could not match in vertical flight profiles. Major Dortmund's revised technical assessment reached Berlin on June 25th. Subject American P-47. Thunderbolt performance revision analysis of combat encounters and captured technical data indicates P-47 diving capability significantly exceeds previous estimates. Observed diving speeds approaching 600 mph with structural integrity maintained throughout velocity range. Climb performance after dive recovery equals or exceeds German fighters at altitudes below 15,000 feet. Previous tactical assessments require immediate revision. Standard diving attacks against P-47 formations result in energy disadvantage for German aircraft. Recommend altitude maintenance and horizontal engagement protocols only. Muller reads the assessment twice before filing copies with Supreme Command and all fighter group commanders. German fighter doctrine, developed through 4 years of successful combat operations, suddenly appears outdated. American engineering has rewritten fundamental rules of air-to-air engagement through superior power application and innovative design philosophy. Major draft new tactical guidelines for immediate distribution. Our pilots must avoid diving combat with P-47 formations. Maintain altitude advantage at all costs. Force Americans into turning engagements where our maneuverability provides decisive advantage. But changing tactical doctrine requires time, training, and dissemination through combat units already engaged with American fighters over France, Germany, and other European theaters. Time the Luftwaffe no longer possesses in sufficient quantity. Resources that German training command cannot provide, given fuel shortages and pilot replacement requirements. Combat statistics from June 1944 support German concerns about American tactical evolution. Gabreski's 61st Fighter Squadron, 17 victories. 2 losses. Weber's IJG-26, 4 victories, 8 losses. Combined P-47 units over Europe. 127 victories, 31 losses. The mathematics of attrition favor American production capacity and pilot training resources. Republic Aviation manufactures over 12,000 P-47s during 1944. German aircraft production peaks at 25,000 fighters annually, but loses approximately 1,200 experienced pilots monthly to combat attrition. Numbers that demonstrate industrial capacity differences between American and German war efforts. Jagdgeschwader 26 Operations Room Lille Airfield, France. July 12, 1944, 14:30 hours. Hauptmann Otto Stamberger pins another loss report to the intelligence board that dominates the eastern wall of the operations room. Red pins mark German aircraft destroyed over the past month. Blue pins indicate confirmed American victories. The pattern emerging across northern France suggests systematic tactical superiority rather than random combat outcomes. 3rd Bf-109 lost this week, shot down during combat with P-47 formations operating from English bases. The pilot, Unteroffizier Hans Müller, managed to bail out over friendly territory and provided detailed debriefing to intelligence officers. His account matches previous reports describing impossible American fighter performance. Herr Hauptmann, the American dove away from my attack at tremendous speed, Müller reports, still wearing his flight suit and parachute harness. I followed in full emergency power and could not close distance. When I pulled out at 2,000 meters altitude, the P-47 was already climbing back to my original position. Stamberger studies the tactical map spread across his planning table. Colored symbols mark recent combat encounters, German losses, American operational patterns, mathematical evidence that suggests fundamental tactical shifts requiring immediate doctrinal revision. Müller described the P-47's diving characteristics in precise detail. Speed estimates, time duration, control authority during high-velocity flight. Sir, the American fighter accelerated beyond anything I have witnessed in 3 years of combat operations. My airspeed indicator showed 750 kilometers per hour in maximum emergency dive. But the P-47 pulled away as if I were flying a training aircraft. Similar reports accumulate from experienced pilots across Jagdgeschwader 26, veterans with hundreds of combat hours, describing scenarios that contradict established fighter performance data compiled by German technical intelligence. American P-47s diving faster than German fighters, then outclimbing them during energy recovery phases. Oberst Müller's telephone call reaches Stamberger at 14 to 45 hours, voice carrying concern and frustration that reflects growing awareness of American tactical evolution. Hauptmann, I'm receiving identical reports from fighter units across the Western Front. P-47 diving speeds that significantly exceed our aircraft capabilities. Are your pilots experiencing similar encounters? Jawohl, Herr Oberst. Consistent observations from experienced pilots across all flight operations. The Americans appear to have developed engagement tactics that exploit superior diving performance, rather than traditional fighter characteristics. Hauptmann, I want you to conduct controlled observation flights immediately. Document P-47 performance with gun camera footage and detailed pilot observations. We need empirical evidence for Technical Assessment Division review. The orders reach squadron level within hours. German pilots receive new mission parameters. Observe and document American fighter capabilities without engaging in combat operations. Gather intelligence data for tactical doctrine revision rather than pursuing victory credits or aircraft destruction. The concept represents a fundamental shift in German fighter operations. Luftwaffe pilots trained for aggressive combat engagement, not passive reconnaissance missions. But American tactical evolution demands intelligence gathering to support doctrinal adaptation. Knowledge that might preserve German pilot lives and aircraft resources. July 18, 1944, 10:30 hours. Oberfeldwebel Friedrich Hartmann leads a reconnaissance flight over the Caen sector. 4 Bf-109G is maintaining 20,000 feet altitude, armed with high-speed cameras instead of additional ammunition loads. Mission parameters: document American fighter behavior without initiating combat engagement. Below their patrol altitude, a formation of 12 P-47 Thunderbolts maintains routine patrol at 15,000 feet. Perfect observation opportunity for German intelligence requirements. American fighters operating in tactical formation, unaware of German observation aircraft, positioned with altitude advantage. All aircraft maintain current altitude and formation, Hartmann transmits. Document American fighter behavior patterns. Do not engage under any circumstances. Hartmann's gun camera equipment records the following tactical sequence: 1431 hours P. 47 formation begins climb toward 18,000 feet. Rate of climb approximately 2,500 feet per minute under normal power settings. Formation discipline maintained throughout ascent phase. 14:33 hours. Lead American fighter spots German reconnaissance flight through visual acquisition. Formation begins immediate tactical positioning for potential engagement scenario. 14:34 hours. 8 P-47s initiate coordinated diving attack from slightly below German altitude. Airspeed builds rapidly, exceeding German fighters' maximum diving velocity within 15 seconds of dive initiation. 14:35 hours. Hartmann attempts standard evasive dive maneuver. P-47s continue to close engagement distance despite German aircraft's head start and full emergency power application. American fighters demonstrate superior acceleration throughout dive profile. 14:36 hours. German formation breaks engagement protocol, diving toward deck level to avoid combat contact. P-47s follow, maintaining superior speed advantage throughout entire descent sequence. 14:38 hours. German fighters level out at 1,000 feet altitude. P-47s continue past German aircraft, achieving what Hartmann estimates as 850 plus kilometers per hour before beginning energy recovery climb phase. 14 to 40 hours. American fighters regain 10,000 feet altitude within 2 minutes of dive termination. German aircraft remain at low altitude, unable to match P-47 climb rate with energy depleted from evasive maneuvers. Hartmann's gun camera footage reaches Berlin intelligence headquarters within 48 hours of the encounter. Technical analysis teams examine frame-by-frame sequences using high-precision measurement equipment. Mathematical calculations confirm pilot observations. P-47 Thunderbolts demonstrate diving performance exceeding German fighter capabilities by significant margins. July 25th, Technical Conference. Luftwaffe Technical Assessment Division. Professor Wilhelm Messerschmitt, designer of the Bf-109 series, examines detailed analysis of Hartmann's footage. Engineering calculations based on visual evidence and known aircraft specifications. Mathematics that challenge fundamental assumptions about fighter aircraft performance parameters. Gentlemen, the American aircraft achieves approximately 850 kilometers per hour in controlled dive configuration. A Bf-109G reaches maximum 7 to 20 kilometers per hour under identical atmospheric conditions. The performance differential exceeds our design capabilities by significant margins. Dr. Kurt Tank, chief designer of the Focke-Wulf 190 series, studies comparative power calculations displayed on the conference room blackboard. Engineering data that explains American performance advantages through superior power plant selection and application. The P-47's R2800 engine produces 2,000 horsepower in normal operations, 2,300 horsepower in war emergency configuration. Combined with aircraft mass characteristics, this provides kinetic energy accumulation that we cannot match in diving flight profiles. Oberst Müller requests immediate tactical recommendations for operational units. Professors, our combat pilots require new engagement protocols immediately. Traditional diving attacks no longer provide tactical advantage against American P-47 formations. Messerschmitt's engineering assessment proves sobering for German tactical doctrine. Herr Oberst, German fighters must avoid vertical combat engagement with P-47 aircraft under all operational circumstances. Maintain horizontal engagement parameters only. Force Americans into turning combat scenarios where our maneuverability characteristics provide decisive advantage. Dr. Tank's supplementary analysis reinforces Messerschmitt's recommendations. German aircraft designs optimized for different combat parameters than American philosophy. Our emphasis on maneuverability versus their emphasis on power application. Neither approach is inherently superior. But American methods prove more effective in current tactical environment. But tactical doctrine implementation requires time and comprehensive training that the Luftwaffe lacks in sufficient quantity. American bomber formations continue daily strategic missions over German territory. Escorted by P-47 Thunderbolts, the German fighters can no longer intercept effectively using traditional engagement methods. Tank's final technical report, dated August 1, 1944, American P-47 Thunderbolt represents advanced power plant technology combined with innovative tactical application philosophy. German aircraft designs remain superior in horizontal maneuvering combat, but American diving performance negates traditional altitude advantages. Immediate tactical countermeasures. Avoid diving engagement under all circumstances. Maintain altitude advantage through fuel management. Engage only in horizontal turning combat, where German maneuverability provides advantage. Accept reduced engagement opportunities to preserve pilot and aircraft resources. The mathematics of aerial warfare have shifted fundamentally. German engineering excellence, proven through 4 years of successful fighter aircraft development, cannot overcome American industrial capacity and innovative design philosophy applied to different tactical requirements. By August 1944, Luftwaffe pilots approach P-47 encounters with defensive caution rather than aggressive confidence. The fat American fighter, once dismissed as easy prey due to excessive weight and apparent clumsiness, has become the apex predator of European skies. Physics lessons delivered at high subsonic speeds through 2,000 horsepower demonstrations of American engineering capability. Stalag Luft 3, prisoner of war camp, Poland. August 15, 1944, 0600 hours. Hauptmann Klaus Weber sits on a wooden bench in the officer's compound, staring at a bowl of watery potato soup that constitutes breakfast in this place of barbed wire and guard towers. Around him, 2,500 Allied airmen begin another day of captivity, their freedom measured in months or years rather than hours or days. 47 victories painted on his Messerschmitt meant nothing when a P-47 Thunderbolt caught him in a climbing turn over the Ruhr Valley on July 20th. The engagement lasted less than 2 minutes. Weber attempted every evasive maneuver learned through 3 years of combat experience. None proved effective against American tactics built around superior diving performance and overwhelming firepower. The compound houses mostly British and American bomber crews shot down over Germany and occupied Europe. Officers who once flew strategic missions against German industrial targets now reduced to counting days behind wire fences and wooden barracks. The human mathematics of aerial warfare, written in captured lives and broken aircraft. Weber's capture occurred during what should have been a routine patrol mission. 8 Bf-109s intercepting American bomber formations returning from targets in the Ruhr Valley. Standard tactical approach. Altitude advantage, coordinated attack, hit-and-run engagement to minimize exposure to escort fighters. Doctrine that had worked successfully for years until American engineering philosophy changed fundamental rules. The American pilot had dived on Weber's formation from 25,000 feet altitude. Weber attempted standard evasive maneuvers developed through hundreds of combat sorties. Sharp defensive turn, diving escape toward deck level, energy recovery climb back to tactical advantage. The P-47 followed through each evolution, maintaining superior speed and positional advantage throughout the entire engagement sequence. Weber's final memory before bailing out over German countryside, 8 50 caliber machine guns converging on his aircraft with mathematical precision. The sound of his Daimler-Benz engine disintegrating under sustained American fire. 3 years of combat experience rendered worthless by physics and engineering philosophy he hadn't understood until too late. Hauptmann Weber? An American voice interrupts his morning contemplation. Weber looks up to see Lieutenant Colonel Francis Gabreski approaching across the compound. The American Ace's uniform displays 28 victory markings beneath pilot wings. Weber recognizes the name from Luftwaffe intelligence briefings, America's leading European fighter pilot and one of the most successful P-47 Thunderbolt operators in the theater. Colonel Gabreski, I understand you fly the aircraft that has been causing our pilots considerable educational difficulties. Gabreski settles onto the wooden bench beside Weber, studying the German ace's weathered face. No hostility or superiority in his expression. Professional respect between warriors who understand combat's random nature and the thin line separating victor from prisoner. I flew P-47s over the same sector where you were engaged, Hauptmann. Your formation put up excellent resistance before the engagement concluded. Weber studies the American pilot's demeanor. Confidence without arrogance. Professional competence earned through successful combat operations rather than propaganda or training rhetoric. The bearing of a pilot who understands his aircraft's capabilities and applies them systematically rather than intuitively. Colonel, may I ask you a technical question about your P-47? Professional curiosity regarding performance characteristics that our intelligence apparently underestimated. Gabreski considers his response carefully. Military security protocols versus professional courtesy between pilots. Information that might compromise operational security against knowledge that serves no tactical purpose in August 1944, with Germany's defeat increasingly inevitable. Your aircraft's diving speed capability. Our technical assessments proved inadequate for tactical planning purposes. We've recorded speeds approaching 600 miles per hour in operational combat dives. Gabreski replies after a moment's consideration. Some of our test pilots have achieved higher velocities in controlled experimental conditions. Republic built substantial margins into their design specifications. Weber nods slowly. Mathematical confirmation of observations that German intelligence had initially dismissed as pilot error or instrument malfunction. Our technical assessment estimated 550 kilometers per hour maximum diving speed. We planned engagement tactics accordingly, obviously. Our calculations contained significant errors. Your 109 is an outstanding aircraft, Hauptmann. Superior turn radius, excellent climb rate to altitude, precise gun platform with effective armament. But Republic built the P-47 for a different kind of warfare than European design philosophy anticipated or prepared for. Weber contemplates this assessment while finishing his meager breakfast. German fighter doctrine emphasized individual pilot skill and aircraft maneuverability characteristics developed through traditional European approaches. Americans had developed systematic approaches, overwhelming firepower, superior numbers, industrial capacity that could replace losses faster than enemies could inflict them. Colonel, I must ask about American pilot training procedures. How many flight hours before combat assignment to operational squadrons? Approximately 400 total flight hours, plus 200 hours specialized combat training. Gabreski responds. Most of our replacement pilots arrive in European theater with instrument ratings, extensive navigation experience, and gunnery training that exceeds pre-war standards by significant margins. Weber's own training had consisted of 150 total flight hours before his first combat mission in September 1941. German pilot replacement training had decreased consistently throughout the war as fuel shortages and operational requirements reduced instructional quality and duration. We were training replacement pilots for 80 hours total by 1944, Weber admits. Fuel shortages and immediate operational requirements, you understand. Quality suffered significantly compared to early war standards. Gabreski's expression shows genuine sympathy rather than superiority. Hauptmann, you survived 3 years of continuous combat operations with that level of preparation. That requires exceptional natural ability, tremendous courage, and professional dedication that few pilots possess. Other German pilots gradually joined their conversation throughout the morning hours. Oberleutnant Hans Dortmann, shot down by P-51 Mustangs over Berlin during a bomber interception mission. Major Wilhelm Fischer, survivor of B-24 defensive fire during a daylight raid. Each carries similar stories: excellent aircraft and tactical training, defeated by American industrial supremacy and systematic approach to aerial warfare. Gentlemen, Gabreski addresses the expanding group of German aviators. This war will end within months rather than years. Germany cannot replace aircraft and trained pilots as quickly as America produces them. It's mathematical reality, not a reflection of individual courage, skill, or dedication. Weber understands the assessment's brutal accuracy. German aircraft production statistics for 1944, approximately 25,000 fighters manufactured across all types and manufacturers. American production during the same period, over 38,000 fighters, plus 16,000 heavy bombers, plus 10,000 transport aircraft. Industrial numbers that German manufacturing capacity cannot match, regardless of individual aircraft quality or pilot expertise. Colonel, what were your specific production numbers for the P-47 Thunderbolt? Republic Aviation built over 12,000 Thunderbolts in 1944 alone, Gabreski responds. That's nearly half of your entire fighter production across all manufacturers, aircraft types, and variants combined. The mathematics prove overwhelming. American industrial capacity dedicated to a single aircraft type approaches total German fighter production. Numbers that demonstrate systematic advantages beyond individual aircraft performance, pilot training quality, or tactical doctrine effectiveness. The conversation continues through afternoon hours as other Allied prisoners join the discussion. Professional exchange between aviators who recognize warfare's evolution beyond individual heroism toward mass production. Systematic training and technological innovation applied through unlimited industrial resources and strategic planning. Weber learns that Gabreski himself had been shot down during a ground strafing mission near the German border, caught by concentrated anti-aircraft fire during low-level attack operations. Even America's leading fighter ace remained vulnerable to warfare's random mathematics and defensive systems. Colonel, what happens to pilots like us after the war ends? Professional aviators without wars to fight? Gabreski gazes toward the compound's barbed wire perimeter, considering futures that seem impossible to predict with certainty. We return home and attempt to build normal civilian lives. Some will succeed in that transition, others will struggle with memories and experiences that peace cannot immediately heal or erase. Weber nods agreement, understanding that 3 years of continuous combat operations have left psychological scars that armistice documents cannot cure overnight. Memories of friends killed in action, aircraft destroyed by enemy fire, battles won and lost through chance rather than skill, courage, or professional competence. Have you given serious thought to aviation careers after military service? And commercial airlines will expand rapidly after the war, Gabreski predicts. Transport aircraft operations, passenger service, cargo delivery, mail routes. Military pilots possess skills that civilian aviation will require for growth and development in peacetime applications. Weber contemplates this possibility while studying the American pilot's confident demeanor. Transition from military combat to civilian aviation represents opportunity rather than defeat. Professional skills applied to peaceful purposes rather than warfare and destruction. Building rather than destroying. As evening shadows lengthen across the prison compound, Weber reflects on his encounter with the P-47 Thunderbolt that ended his combat career. Not personal failure or inadequate training, but technological and systematic defeat that no individual pilot could overcome through skill alone. The fat American fighter he had dismissed in May 1944 represented more than improved aircraft design or engineering innovation. It symbolized America's comprehensive approach to warfare, Identify tactical problems, apply engineering solutions, manufacture results through systematic industrial capacity and unlimited resource allocation. Weber's 47 victories demonstrated individual courage, skill, and determination, applied through 3 years of combat operations against overwhelming odds. Gabreski's 28 victories represented those same personal qualities, plus systematic training, superior logistic support, replacement aircraft availability, and mathematical inevitability of American industrial production. The realization carries no shame or personal inadequacy, only professional understanding of strategic realities that transcend individual capabilities. Individual excellence cannot overcome systematic disadvantages indefinitely when opponents possess overwhelming resource advantages and innovative engineering philosophy supported by unlimited funding. The P-47 Thunderbolt's diving speed advantage reflected America's broader strategic advantages across all aspects of warfare. Fuel availability for extended pilot training programs, manufacturing capacity for aircraft replacement, technological innovation supported by unlimited research funding, and tactical doctrine that emphasized systematic approaches over individual heroism or traditional methods. Colonel, I must admit something that German pride makes difficult to acknowledge openly. Gabreski turns toward Weber with respectful attention, recognizing the moment's significance. We fundamentally underestimated American engineering capability and industrial philosophy. Our intelligence focused on individual aircraft specifications rather than systematic applications of technology, resources, and innovative design approaches. Hauptmann, every nation makes strategic assumptions based on their own experiences, capabilities, and historical precedents. German engineering produced excellent aircraft within your resource constraints and design philosophy. American industry had different advantages to apply toward the same tactical problems. Weber finishes his evening meal and prepares for another night in captivity behind barbed wire and guard towers. Tomorrow will bring identical routine, morning roll call, work details assigned by camp administration, evening conversations with fellow prisoners from various allied nations. But his understanding of the war's inevitable outcome has crystallized through one fundamental truth. They had laughed at the fat American fighter climbing slowly toward their altitude advantage that June morning, until it dropped its nose and dived at tremendous speed, powered by 2,000 horsepower, transforming every assumption about aerial combat physics and rewriting the mathematics of warfare through simple American engineering philosophy applied to tactical requirements. The sound of his Messerschmitt's engine disintegrating under P-47 gunfire will echo in Weber's memory for decades after the war ends. Not as symbol of personal defeat or professional inadequacy, but as audio evidence of technological evolution and systematic industrial capability applied to military requirements through innovative design approaches. German fighter doctrine had emphasized individual pilot skill and aircraft maneuverability characteristics developed through traditional European approaches. American doctrine emphasized overwhelming firepower, superior numbers, and mathematical inevitability achieved through industrial supremacy and systematic resource application. Neither approach was inherently superior, but American methods proved more effective in the strategic context of 1944. Weber settles into his wooden bunk and pulls a thin blanket over his uniform. Outside, searchlights sweep the compound perimeter, while guards maintain their nocturnal vigilance against escape attempts. Inside the barracks, hundreds of Allied airmen attempt sleep despite uncertainty about war's duration and their eventual fate. But Klaus Weber sleeps peacefully for the first time since his capture, understanding finally that his 47 victories and ultimate defeat represent mathematics rather than personal inadequacy or professional failure. The P-47 Thunderbolt had simply demonstrated physics lessons that German intelligence never comprehended until too late to matter for tactical applications. They had dismissed the fat American fighter as unsuitable for aerial combat due to excessive weight and apparent clumsiness, until it proved that 7 tons of steel could fall from the sky faster than 3 tons of aluminum, regardless of pilot skill, tactical doctrine, or traditional design philosophy. American engineering philosophy written in diving speeds that no German fighter could match, delivered through industrial capacity that no enemy could overcome. The mathematics of aerial warfare transformed forever by a Republic P-47 Thunderbolt diving at tremendous speed toward French countryside on a clear morning in June 1944. Physics lessons that changed everything about air-to-air combat, one impossible dive at a time. Engineering philosophy that rewrote fundamental rules through systematic application of power, resources, and innovative design approaches. Weber closes his eyes and listens to the sounds of camp life settling into evening routine. Somewhere in the distance, transport aircraft engines drone overhead, carrying supplies to Allied forces advancing across Europe. American engines, most likely. Pratt & Whitney radials or Wright Cyclones. The same engineering philosophy that powered P-47 Thunderbolts to diving speeds no German pilot had believed possible. They had laughed at the fat fighter until it taught them physics lessons in humility, delivered at high subsonic speeds through American industrial capability and innovative engineering philosophy. Mathematics that changed everything about aerial warfare forever.